What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the altar again, and this time we return with Marina, a Phantom Elite. Great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime, anytime. It's so awesome to have you here. Before we spoke, I didn't even have the altar or any visuals, really. It was just an audio interview, so great to be able to talk face to face, so to speak.
Cool.
Yeah,
I also have here my beautiful green screen, very natural.
yeah, the metaverse. The metaverse. Yeah.
Right.
But it's so cool to have you here. Your new album is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Yep, your new album, Blue Blood. Was this just picking up where you left off after Titanium, or was this meant to be sort of like new territory and a new beginning for Phantom Elite in a way?
I think both at the same time. Like we had nothing planned. It's not like we sat together to write and we were like, okay, we're gonna write this type of song or like we just picked off from where we left with Titanium and things turned out to be really different. Or it depends on how you look at it. It can be a continuation of Titanium. It can be seen like that, an evolution, or you can think it's completely different, but it really isn't. It makes sense as an evolution, and it sounds not the same. So if you know what I mean.
Was there any forethought that went into it, being that you said this was a very like spur of the moment, unplanned thing, or was it just all completely experimenting and all completely improvised?
It was mostly, okay, let's just do what we want to. Let's just do what we feel like. And I think one forethought we had was just because we weren't really vibing with it anymore, we didn't want it to be super symphonic. We just wanted, to have as least the least elements from symphonic metal as we could. So that was, I think, the only thing that we actually planned, but it's not like we had that intention and it needed to be less symphonic. It's just because we didn't feel like writing very symphonic music. That's just it.
Yeah, you didn't want to sort of be confined to like one specific sound in a way.
Right, and it's also because we don't really listen to it at the moment, so it's not something that we do wholeheartedly. It would be fake. It would just be something that we're doing for a formula or for a specific audience, and that's just not what we want with this band.
Yeah. Well, I remember listening to Titanium. One song that I absolutely love was a song such as "The Worst Part of Me," or when you get to a
Right.
track like "A Glass Crown." Like it almost seemed like I couldn't even just label you as just symphonic metal, even with Titanium. It seemed like
No,
you were
no.
able to sort of push boundaries along that genre to begin with.
Right, absolutely. So it's not like we ever thought, oh, we need to be a symphonic band, but we still felt like we played it safe with Titanium more than with this one.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, this was back when I was doing reviews. I do feel somewhat bad about labeling it in the symphonic metal category because I do think that there was a lot more than just that. I think you could agree.
Right.
But symphonic metal too has its own fair share of diversity. It could sound like
Of
Epicor, it
course.
could sound like Flesh God Apocalypse or Demi
Of
Voyageur.
course.
So,
Yeah. I mean, we're not diminishing the symphonic subgenre in any way, shape, or form. It's more like what we feel like expressing or what we feel like doing. That's completely different than we don't like it, or we don't think it's valuable.
yeah. When it comes to writing material together, is it better that all of you are kind of like in the same headspace emotionally and feeling the same sort of energy when writing music together, or could all of you being in different headspaces actually maybe help enhance the sound of Phantom Elite?
Well, that's a very, yeah, it's a good question. I think that both situations coexisted along the writing process of Blue Blood. For many songs, we were just thinking alike. We wanted the same things for the song, and some songs we wanted completely different things. And we ended up incorporating completely different elements into one song, and we're able to convince each other that that particular element works.
Yeah.
And right.
Is everything that we're hearing sort of like reflective of an emotion that maybe you were feeling lyrically and vocally, or does subject matter from the external also influence and guide with how you record your vocals and lyricism?
Well, I think that it's very hard to separate as an artist what you feel and what you're doing. Even though I consider Titanium to be more personal lyrically, at least, this one we were thinking about, little backstories or characters even for writing the lyrics of the songs. But I mean, I truly believe that who we are just ends up shining through, and yeah, I think that that's absolutely. I wouldn't say it's completely reflecting my mental state in the moment at the moment, but there's definitely that. It wasn't set to do that. It's not like, okay, this album will be a complete reflection of what I feel right now. That was actually not the what we wanted, or I at least. I was like, I wanted to be a little bit more, atmospheric and moody and picturing different, landscapes of feelings. And I think we actually managed to do that, but it always ends up just a little bit angry and a little bit full of anguish everywhere. So I think that's a lot of our personal style, or also what we were feeling. It was completely written during post pandemic times, like towards the end of it, and we were feeling really limited and at times hopeless. And I think everything that we were feeling at the moment really played a role in the sound and lyrics of the album, for sure, even though it wasn't the goal.
Yeah. Well, when you use anger or sort of like negative emotions as a means of inspiration, obviously, letting that out is very cathartic, but could that
Right.
also maybe make the songwriting process rather deteriorating as well? Could that almost sometimes defeat the purpose? Or as I say, an artist could sometimes become victims of their own product, as I like to say.
Right. No, I totally get what you mean, but I don't think this was the case at all. I don't think so, because every time we let something a little bit more aggressive in the lyrics, we were almost like, yes. We were like, yes, that works very well, because, this riff is so aggressive, and, the lyrics are so aggressive, so it kind of matches in its own universe. But you're right. I do believe that metal, a big part of why I like metal is to be able to have this cathartic process of, just also allowing negative emotions to be expressed.
Yeah.
Right. And not only being feeling love sick for someone, which is what you see a lot in pop music, and sometimes I'm like, can you talk about something else, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I've always said about love though is because with love it could stop just like that, so people want to maybe sing about it as much as they can, whereas hatred or anger or negativity could go on and on and on and on and on forever. So maybe people just want to hold on to that love as long as they can.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I could make an argument that people don't want to be bothered with negative emotions. They want to escape that a little bit, or they want to, maybe don't want to look beneath the surface, which I think a lot of metal lyrics do.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to express anger as much as is, not that you're gonna end up shouting. I'm saying metal is exactly, it's so good exactly because you can express that in a safe environment, so it's just therapeutic, really.
Of course.
So you don't end up punching someone on the street.
Yeah.
That's just
Unless you're
what I
listening,
feel.
unless you're listening to hardcore. I was at a hardcore show yesterday. There was a lot
Right.
of punching people. So
But even that is cathartic.
absolutely.
People it's all in good fun. People mosh pit and they punch each other and they go back home happy and they sleep like a baby.
Right? It's the only place where you could leave bleeding with a smile on your face.
Right, exactly, exactly.
But sometimes you are working on a song for hours or days, maybe even weeks or months in a way. So maybe when you like are working on a song for a long period of time, does it make it sort of more difficult to like maintain that emotion in a way? Does it make it sort of a little hard? Do you almost have to like find a way to hold on to it to sort of feel the same way when you finish a song as you do when you start it?
Ooh, yeah, that's a very hard one. Um, I think the emotion that we feel towards the song doesn't necessarily correlate to the lyrics, if you know what I mean, or to the but I must admit that is hard. For example, if you're totally in a very aggressive song and then I don't know, you're just going through a very good phase in life, it's kind of hard to go back to that aggressive mood. You're right about that. But I don't think that in this album specifically we had that many issues. We had other issues about, a certain song being, we try to write it and rewrite it 100 times, and it took like, I don't know, 5 months to write the song. And then by the end of it, we weren't feeling it anymore, so we had to rewrite it completely different. But that was not necessarily about the feelings or how we felt. It was more like musically, it just didn't hit that well anymore.
Yeah.
So that happened.
Could it ever, like, do you hold on to the old way it was written to see if maybe musically it could resonate with you in the future, or once you scrap something you never return to it?
Oh no! Once we scratch, it's gone. It's gone. We hold a certain grudge towards it. It's like we don't want to hear this anymore.
Well,
Bye.
that anger alone though could help make me feel the song even better.
Right, right. That happened with one specific track in this album. The way "Laid with Vines," that was a completely different song in the beginning. Completely different lyrics, completely different name, completely different song. And suddenly we were like, you know what? This is just not working anymore. In the beginning, we were very thrilled. It was supposed to be, one of the hits in the album, but then we were like, we're just not feeling it anymore. So we either toss it in the trash or we just completely rewrite it. And
You never know.
that's
That
what we
could have
did.
been the biggest hit you guys would ever have, but
We don't think so.
fair enough.
Well, who knows? Who
Right?
knows?
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
You also talked about I heard you mention the word sort of like characters in this album as well. So does it almost feel like maybe there are parts where maybe you are portraying aside an element outside of who Marina really is? Maybe you almost put yourself in the shoes
Absolutely.
of other people when you're singing these songs.
Yeah, there is a certain element of that for sure. We didn't go as far as having, a complete backstory, or, it's not completely a concept album, and they're not like characters with names and well constructed nor anything, but there is this element of portraying a certain entity or a certain feeling that is not necessarily something that I feel all the time. For example, Inner Beast was about, yeah, really something. I started writing it as, okay, I'm going to write this from a perspective of a monster. I don't know, a serial killer, or just someone who just, commits acts for horrible acts just for pleasure or something like that. Throughout the lyrics, it turned out to be way more about me than I expected. You know what I mean? It's not like I make people scream and I'm super happy with that, but there are there are certain parts in the song that are definitely about, wow, anyone can relate to this. It's just really about trying to overcome your own traps, trying to be a better person and falling into your old patterns again, and just so
Well,
Right.
depending on what the subject matter is that you're singing about, whether it is portraying something else or singing something personal or internal sources versus external sources, does it resonate with you differently when you finish that song and you're listening to it? Does it almost hit you in a different manner depending on what the lyrical subject matter is about?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But I can say that after answering your question, or a few of your questions just now, I think there's always a mix. I can't not turn that into something personal or relatable, or universally relatable. So that's definitely the case. Yeah.
Well, all art is open to interpretation in a way where people are going to resonate with
Right.
it on their own. So, do you think that maybe the meaning could evolve over time as more people are interpreting it, and that maybe people's experiences with it add another layer of context?
Absolutely. And I think that's important. I didn't want to, or we didn't want to make the songs lyrically very closed, because there was a discussion in the beginning if we should actually make this album a conceptual album, with like real characters and a real storyline. And we went a little bit away from it because we felt like, at least at this point, we feel it's super important that people can interpret it as well. They can relate to it and they can interpret the way they want to. And I think that's super important, because I personally love when I listen to a song and I interpret it a certain way. It doesn't really matter if that's what the artist meant or not. I think it's just super important if it hits you in a certain way and you can somehow learn from it or have a cathartic experience from it. It's just like, it's all positive.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah.
Especially because I think, we talked about, the negative energy that's channeled into it, but like circling back to Titanium, when you go from like when you open up with like a track and then you move on to like The Race and then you go to like Titanium and then Deliverance and then you end with Eyes Wide Open, it just seems like every song had its own sort of like emotional roller coaster that went through it.
Right.
So when you perform these songs or like revisit them, does the feeling towards them also change, or does it kind of put you in like a time warp in a way where like it puts you back in that same headspace when you revisit it?
Funny enough, I think it always changes. I can say that because we're rehearsing now for, well, we're done with rehearsals now. We're going on tour next this week, and we play older songs and we play newer songs. And I already felt that the way I connect to the older songs changed. So I do think that you're always in a different headspace for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're performing.
Well, I've always said that art is life, and when you bring it into the
Right.
world, it can grow and it can develop. Sometimes it could eventually die.
Absolutely.
So your relationship with the art is also going to change as the relationship with the human being also changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
When it comes to that idea of getting inspired, I can't remember if I asked you this the last time we spoke, but do you believe inspiration is something that can be sought out in a way? Do you believe that you can theoretically look for inspiration, or does it just kind of have to strike you?
Oh, I believe in both. Absolutely. I think sometimes it just happens and it strikes you, and the muses just speak through you, and things happen, and you're like, I didn't write that, like this just happened. I don't know how that happened. But I also believe that as a professional musician and songwriter, you have to make inspiration happen. So yes, and that is through work and a set of tools and a set of protocols that you have for yourself or with your team. Like with Family, we all write together, and I can tell you, not one song in this album was written exactly the same way, using the same protocol than others. Like they really were written completely differently. I told you, Late with Vines, for example, was a song that we just tried everything. We went to our through our toolbox and tried, like, okay, what can we change here? What could make this song work? And we searched out references from other artists, and we tried them, and nothing worked. So we just completely tossed everything in the trash, and we're like, okay, let's start again. And that one was, and then the last time we tried to rewrite it, it was completely organic, and it just happened. So that happens. And I can also tell you that other songs in the album, for example, Fragments, we really worked hard on it. Like, just like going through our tools and trying to make the song better. And it worked as well, So it's both, let's say, ways of writing are completely, they bring results for sure.
Well, I had a conversation with my tattoo artist about this a while ago, saying that if she only tattooed when she was inspired, she would never pay her rent. So, like, sometimes you kind of, I don't, it's not good to force art in a way, but sometimes you need to kind of like go down a rabbit hole.
You need to,
and like,
yeah. Once you have deadlines and things like that, then you're like, we really need to make this work. And sometimes that works really well. It's not only the super inspired songs that are good, but the other ones are also, as good as. So.
Yeah. Does other artistic mediums play a role in how you also write lyrics or music? Like, are you looking at literature or film or visual art in a way as a means?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's not necessarily that I watch a movie and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write a song about that. Or sometimes that happens, but it's not necessarily like that. But it definitely plays a role. Like when you're writing something, or and you're watching and you're consuming these other types of art, like movies and other music, it ends up inspiring you. So it ends up kind of shining through what you're doing. And I can say that with music, it's absolutely 100% true, because what we were listening to at the moment when we were writing this album, you can hear it, or like we can, at least, because we know what we were listening to, and it ends up shining through, even if we didn't actively say, okay, let's make a song that sounds like them. Like, we didn't do that, but that ends up happening. And the same thing with other types of art, like movies and series. Absolutely.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for coming back onto the show and for such
thank you.
Another great conversation, and most of all, another fantastic album. Just with the release of Blue Blood, you mentioned you're going on tour this week. What else can we be expecting from Phantom Elite? I know I asked you this last time, but when is Phantom Elite coming to the States?
Oh my God! I wish I could give you an answer right now. I don't know. Unfortunately, it's not super easy to schedule tours right now. Still isn't. I mean, it's never been. Yeah, but let's say it's just harder. But for now, we have this one tour through Europe scheduled, and we are at the same time working on a bunch of different opportunities. And I mean, they might turn out to be concrete or not. So let's keep our fingers crossed. And as soon as we have something to announce, we definitely will.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Phantom Elite, Blue Blood. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Right. Thank you.